Hey, good afternoon. It's 3:07 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, top of the hour at 4 o'clock, Nick Minnock will be with us from WJLA. Great reporter. We'll talk to him about Northern Virginia schools, the transgender sex offender who's apparently been in all of them, and the fact that a bunch of these school systems continue to fight against the American voter and the Trump administration. Nick will give us an overview of all of that coming up at 4. At 4:30, Mike Davis from the Article 3 Project is here. Attorney General Pam Bondi is in the house now. Mike Davis will talk about it. And then Congressman Michael Cloud is here at 5:30 today. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A little bit of housekeeping for the federal employees in the audience today. Apparently, you get a reprieve on making a big decision about whether or not you're going to take this buyout for a few days. A judge today saying that the deadline for that is at least at the moment on pause. Everybody had to make up their mind by midnight tonight whether or not they were going to take the buyout. And the Wall Street Journal's reporting says that a federal judge extended this Thursday deadline for federal employees to decide whether to accept the offer from the Trump administration to resign their jobs voluntarily as the president and his allies attempt to shrink the government workforce. U.S. District Judge George O'Toole in Massachusetts, guy's a total tool, ordered the deadline be paused for now and schedule a hearing for Monday on whether to grant a temporary restraining order that would block the program while the litigation challenging the offer proceeds. Employees had previously been told they had until the end of the day on Thursday to decide whether to accept the offer. I'll have you know, if for those of you who listen with some frequency to this program, you may have heard me say at the tail end of last week that my goal was to try and get somebody from OMB, the Office of Management and Budget at the White House, on our air. We have had daily conversations with their schedulers to try and get somebody in front of you on this air to discuss that because, we're in an unusual circumstance as a Washington, D.C. based radio station. We got a lot of federal employees. Obviously, this is a top of mind for many of you. So we are, again, continuing to seek answers. But so far, no dice. So we're going to keep plugging away at that. I really do want somebody from OMB to get on this air with us. Maybe a couple of days breather here to get some more answers. But trust me, we've been working on it. No question about that. But there's no question also that the government needs to be brought under control. And the federal workers in our audience know that too. We have an out-of-control federal government, a lot of dead weight floating around, and a lot of money being wasted. Do you know how much it costs for – well, let me change the structure of this. But you'll get the implication about cost in a moment. But you understand how many private sector employees need to pay taxes in order to pay for one federal employee? Are you familiar with the math on this? So when the government takes money out of your paycheck, the federal government, only a small percentage of it goes to paying for federal workers, salaries and benefits. In fact, most of it goes towards obviously the big line items in the budget, the things that we need to pay for, the Defense Department, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, interest on the debt. That's where your money's all going. And then some small percentage of your paycheck goes to pay for federal workers, employees, and benefits, salary and benefits. On average, it takes 80 private sector workers to cover one federal employee. 80. Let's back up for a moment. You know how many federal employees we have? The publicly reported number on the subject is in the vicinity of 3 million. 3 million people working in the federal government. Now, in the United States, we have a little over 300 million people living in the country, in the vicinity of 350 million people living in our country, but 3 million people working for the federal government. So just a little bit of napkin math suggests that if we add just a few more people to the federal government, we're getting to a place where it's completely unsustainable. It is not sustainable to have a government that's this bloated at all. And as you know, if you work within it, you know how wasteful the whole system is. You know which of your coworkers are doing literally nothing to collect a paycheck and are probably driving you crazy by existing in that protected status. So President Trump is trying to change it. And the numbers I keep saying are that he wants to make cuts to the government in the vicinity of 10% of the federal workforce. So if that's the case, we're looking at about 300,000 fewer people working in the employ of the American taxpayer. 300,000. And each and every one of those has 80 private sector American taxpayers who will be grateful that they don't have to be covered anymore. So there's that. That's a big deal. And getting that under control is legit. And what we have right now, according to the, again, publicly available data on the subject, right now 40,000 federal workers have taken the buyout offer. 40,000 of them. That's not 300,000. Not yet. But I imagine, by the time that window finally officially closes, that we'll have dramatically higher numbers than 40,000. But it's a start. It's a start. And God bless President Trump and everybody who's working for him, who are actually, for the first time in most of our lifetimes, taking a sincere, deep dive into all the ways the federal government wastes our money. Now, one of the things that I'm seeing in reaction to President Trump cutting spending at places like the State Department and USAID, all over the place, there's a couple of responses to this by people who don't want Trump to do it. They're angry about this. One of them is that rather than defend the spending, like transgender comic books in Peru, they're not doing that. Instead, they're attacking the people who are scrutinizing the spending. Have you noticed? This is the way that Washington argues. If they can win on the merits, they'll argue the merits. But if they can't win on the merits, they'll find some step in the process that they can demonize. That's the plan. And so the step in the process that they want to demonize right now, there's a lot. They're spazzing out. They're lashing out at everything. But one area that they're attacking is Elon Musk. They're saying, he's unelected. He can't do this. He's not allowed to do this. First of all, what federal employee, what political appointee is elected? None of them. None of them. None of the political appointees are elected. They're in those roles because the American voter put the guy in charge in place. And then he assigned those people. He nominated those people. He hired those people, depending on the role, whether or not it's a Senate-confirmed position. So this is a ludicrous argument. Oh, he's unelected. Yeah, no kidding. So is the Secretary of State. What is this? This is a ridiculous argument meant to distract from the core issue, which is, why are we wasting money on this crap? Why are we wasting our money? One of the other responses I'm seeing, and I think this mostly comes from sort of like the never Trump Republican wing, to the extent that that's still a real thing, is, oh, this isn't enough spending to mean anything. Oh, who cares? That's just a couple of $1 billion here, a couple of $1 billion there. He's not really tackling the big stuff. He's not going after Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense spending, on and on and on. This is nothing. So they're poo-pooing it. They're treating it like it's a fool's errand. It's not worth doing. This is a total distraction. You can't tackle this stuff and say you're doing something for the American people. It's not a real big part of the budget. Okay. Well, a cup of coffee every day at Starbucks is not a real big part of my budget. I probably shouldn't be doing it. It's probably a bad idea. That money, it really, in the end, it does add up, and it could be put to much better use. And that's on an individual basis. If you're in the United States government, you are entrusted with the American taxpayer's treasure. And so you're telling me we've been wasting money on this crap? All of it? We're paying to keep news outlets open who do nothing but the bidding of the establishment? What is that? We're paying to put on, sex changes in Guatemala? We're paying for Egyptian tourism programs? We're paying to create Sesame Street in Iraq? This is ludicrous. It is completely ludicrous. We have veterans who can't get the care they need. We have regions of our country that have been wrecked by natural disaster whose citizens are not whole yet, who are being skipped over by the federal government for having Trump signs out. We have a border that has been wide open. And you're spending money on this garbage? No thanks. I didn't sign up for this. Almost no one signed up for this. In fact, most of this was done under the cover of darkness. That the federal government is so bureaucratic and so Byzantine and so hard to unravel that a lot of this is done out of your sight. In a sense, it's the perfect inversion from what Trump is doing right now. What is Trump doing right now? Trump is doing a full court press on the entire federal government. He is acting with such ruthless speed and efficiency and attacking on every single front he can possibly establish, right? And the end result is the left is panicking. They don't even know what to do with it. They don't know which issue to concentrate on. They don't know how to, quote, message it. They don't know how to respond. They can't get their media allies on the same page. Nobody knows what to do. And this is the only way that you can take down this Leviathan, is to attack it in every direction. Every single one. And so Trump is doing that. Meanwhile, what has the government been doing for years? The government has been waging a full court press on you. They've been doing the same thing in reverse in the most corrupt possible way. Under the cover of darkness, in every available agency, at every opportunity to spend your money, at every opportunity to print it, they've been devising programs and propaganda and efforts and buying off media outlets and totally corrupting everything about the treasure that you are forced to give the government every 2 weeks. They've been waging a full court press on you going back at least decades, for a very long time. And so now the American people have concentrated on saying, we're going to take the fight back to the government. And they're doing it now. And again, the left doesn't know what to do with it. Look, here's another example of the left's confusion about all of this and how to handle it. Have you seen that they're attacking the young people who are working for Elon Musk? These young geniuses, I really mean it, geniuses. These kids are off the charts. Off the charts. There's reports that they've literally, some of them have taken their families. They're between the ages, supposedly, of like 19 and 24 years old. By now, you've probably heard this because the left keeps attacking them for being young. 19 and 24 years old. Some of them have young families already. By the way, heroes. I'm rooting for you if you have a young family. It's the best. They're moving into some of these government buildings, sleeping on cots, working 120 hours a week. 120 hours a week. One person working. You're barely sleeping at that point. Rifling through the government's dirty laundry, exposing everything. I know they're not getting paid enough. I know. I started this segment talking about dead meat government workers who are being paid too much for doing nothing. Now we've got all these government workers who are really putting in the time and not getting paid anywhere near enough for the public service that they're providing. And the left is attacking them. AOC's position this week is that young people are unqualified and too stupid to be in these roles. That's what she's been saying. She says that Elon is an idiot. Elon Musk, of all people, is dumb. He is so dumb. He's the Thomas Edison of our time. He's a relentless inventor and innovator. And you can have criticisms of Elon. You can pick at him for taking government subsidies for some of his projects. You can pick at him for being a little too cozy with China. You can go after him for things. But to say that he's a dummy coming from AOC, it's crazy. And so then she attacks the young people. These unqualified young people. They don't have security clearances. What are they doing? How dare they enter the government? This is the thinking. This is the way the left is presenting itself. This is a political party that is in the wilderness right now and deserves to be there forever. Forever. And so their new political strategy, the one they've devised over the last, let's say, 48 hours, is let's attack young people. Hillary Clinton is doing it too. Hillary Clinton, who is famously awful at waging political campaigns, is now attacking young people. Mocking the fact that we have 22-year-olds who have more sense and wisdom and ambition and innovation than most people who work, especially in Democrat Party politics. I'll get into the way that's happening. Again, she's publicly attacking young people now. This party is really stupid. And boy, I do hope that they end up staying in the wilderness forever, because that's what they deserve. They built this. They deserve to stay there. Yeah, Hillary Clinton today attacking young people, young, enterprising people going into government. Par for the course. So here's what she's saying. She went out and she's attacking Sean Duffy. He's the transportation secretary. And she wrote, U.S. airlines have gone 16 years without fatal crashes. Then MAGA fired the FAA chief, gutted the Aviation Security Advisory Committee, and threatened air traffic controllers with layoffs. Now there have been 2 fatal crashes. Hope your unvetted 22-year-olds fix things fast, she said. All right, so attacking the kids for working in the government and doing a good job. Also, everything she just said was a lie. Everything. Sean Duffy, to his great credit, responded. He goes, I know you're lashing out because Doge is uncovering your family's obscene grifting via USAID, but I won't let you lie and distort facts. The FAA administrator announced he resigned over a month before Trump took office, and the air traffic controllers were always exempt from Trump's civil service buyouts. And he keeps going. He says, your team had its chance and failed. We're moving on without you because the American people want us to make America's transportation system great again. And yes, we're bringing the 22-year-olds with us. Good for Secretary Duffy now. Really good. Boy, I've got a lot more to share with you, including the left and the political wilderness in which they live. It's funny, if your whole thing is like whatever Trump is for, I'm against. It doesn't work out too well if Trump is for all the popular stuff. That always leads to bad things for a political party who promises always to take the unpopular position. We'll get to that coming up. Also, old Fang Fang. Mr. Fang Fang is back in the news. I'll tell you why. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's WMAL. Good to have you with us. 3:36 here. We got Nick Minnock joining us from WJLA at the top of the hour. A great reporter. He'll be discussing all of these Northern Virginia school districts who are in open war against Donald Trump and the American voter. Mike Davis joins us at 4:30. Attorney General Pam Bondi is in the house. And Mike will talk to us about what she should focus on first. And Michael Cloud, Congressman, 5:30. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. That last tweet I was reading to you from Treasury Secretary Sean Duffy, he was dunking on Hillary Clinton, a well-deserved dunk on Hillary Clinton. His daughter, Evita Duffy, also responding to that, saying, just a PSA, my dad would never commit suicide. Just wanted everybody to know he's not the suicidal type, as he mixes it up with Hillary Clinton for no reason, just letting everybody know. It seems like an important detail to share. Evita Duffy. Evita Duffy works on the Dan Bongino show. She works with Dan, as you may know. You probably hear her from time to time here on our air. This is my way of jumping in and telling you that tomorrow I will be hosting Dan Bongino's Fine Radio program for the 3 hours that you normally can hear him, followed by my own 3 hours here on WMAL. So excited to spend tomorrow, spend 6 hours with you. If you can do it, if you can hang with me. Be a lot of fun. Look forward to that. Okay. Let's see here. We've got the White House has just been great. You know, Caroline Leavitt, new White House press secretary, she keeps rolling out all of these absurd pieces of spending that the federal government has been doing and that the Trump administration is addressing. Here's an example.
Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes, in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you. Democrats are outraged that the American people want to be, they want their taxpayers going to good uses, not stuff like this.
Yeah.
But then they're very quiet about the fact that there are still North Carolinians and people in California
Amen.
who have lost everything. And
Yep.
in the last 4 years, this federal government did nothing to help them. This president will continue to put Americans first. And I think the successes of this week so far speak to that. And it's only Wednesday.
Can't argue with any of that, can you? The left is trying, though, to an extent. There's a hilarious tweet from a guy whose entire career is defined by stepping on rakes. Congressman Eric Swalwell today posted just a little bit after lunchtime. So full belly, empty brain. He wrote, "They frauded about the fraud. They frauded about the fraud." And inside of his tweet, he posts to some random left-wing news outlet that claims that the White House is misleading you about all that spending that you just heard. The White House is misleading you. It's a website called Notice, Notus. I think that means News of the United States. That's the play on words they're doing there. And the headline on the piece is, "The White House keeps pointing out insane USAID spending that isn't USAID." Oh, do tell. Tell us more. I want to hear more about this. Oh, we're being misled? Was this spending not actually occurring? As the White House seeks to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development, the Trump administration has taken to touting certain examples of waste and abuse at USAID that have nothing to do with USAID. In fact, at least 3 of the White House's examples are not USAID. $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, as White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters this week. Quote, "I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap," she said, calling those 3 examples, quote, "some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on." Now, they inset here in brackets USAID because she didn't actually use that word. They insert it into her quote to really drive home the point. But in reality, this website says, USAID hasn't been spending money on any of those examples. According to federal spending records, it's the State Department, which President Donald Trump recently put in control of USAID, that is funding those line items. Oh, what an amazing fact check. So you're telling me that American taxpayers have been wasting money on sex changes in Guatemala and funding tourism in Egypt and Sesame Street shows in Iraq and ridiculous things in Colombia. So you're confirming what the White House told us. Thanks for the help. Thanks very much. Isn't this amazing? So the left is saying that because some of the spending that the Trump administration is now getting rid of wasn't happening specifically under USAID, that it's totally defensible now? Is that what you're saying? What are you saying? So Eric Swalwell saying they frauded about the fraud. No. Once again, just like every other element of your career, you just stepped on a metaphorical rake and took it straight to the head. This guy, he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. You know, and the president, as I mentioned ahead of the break, is outmaneuvering these guys because he keeps on basically taking up positions that are wildly popular with the American people, and there's no answer to them. This is why the left has no answer. They don't know what to say to answer all of this. In fact, cutting USAID spending and all of this crazy spending, when people hear what it's about, transgender comic books from Peru, they're like, I'm out. Why are we doing that? That's so stupid. Stop wasting my money on it. And the same is true with the women's sports executive order that President Trump signed yesterday. There's not any reasonable American. There's nobody with any sense about them thinks that men should play women's sports. None. You have to be so far into the left's delusions. You have to be so far into that cult to believe that this is a good thing. Or you're a pervert. Or you straight up are a misogynist. You think that men should beat women to a pulp. That's your position. Those are really the only ways you can arrive at, I think men should play women's sports. It is cruel and it's sick. And so President Trump signs an executive order yesterday, and the left is going crazy about it. They're losing their minds over this. And so let me run down some of these things. But first and foremost, I just want to point out that on CNN last night, Scott Jennings brought this up. He said Trump's superpower is that on every 80-20 issue, he takes the 80 and he forces Democrats to take the 20. Take a listen.
He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why.
I don't know.
It's totally right. It's totally right. In fact, CNN's Harry Enton, the data guy, the guy who runs through the data, he looks at the chart, he says this is small, and now it's big now after a couple of months, and it's because Trump is winning. You might not believe it, but Trump is winning. Harry Enton keeps telling the audience, delivering the bad news. He says, like this thing about women's sports, the public wildly supports Donald Trump's position.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports.
Gee willikers, I don't think men should be cheating in women's sports, the American public says, based on this very clear data. Harry Enton pointing at his screens. CNN people, all the rest of the CNN hosts all sitting around mouths agape. I can't believe the American people think that men shouldn't play women's sports. Harry Enton.
But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports. Back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, not anywhere close to
the first year of the Biden presidency. A wild majority of the public was against men in women's sports.
A ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
Of course. And one more piece of data from Mr. Data. It's that Democrats are all against men in women's sports. 67%.
You get 67% of Democrats, so two-thirds there. You get 64% of independents, so you get about two-thirds there. And then look at this. Near uniformity among Republicans, 94% of Republicans in opposition. You rarely get 67% of Democrats and 94% of Republicans to agree on anything, but they do on this particular issue.
Who are the 6% of Republicans who think that men should play women's sports? What is wrong with you? How cuckolded are you? What? 6%? That's so crazy. I don't even know how that number exists. Also, it's weird that Democrats are ahead of independents on opposing men in women's sports. Isn't that kind of crazy? I guess we've got a lot of Marxists or something who are independents, some crazy people out there. But still, the numbers are really clear. Got home from the radio show yesterday, and I was showing the family some of the videos of President Trump in the Oval Office signing the executive order. And it was a great scene. If you haven't seen it yet, go find it. It's so good. And it's totally unmatched. The left can't touch it. And you've got women of all ages packed into the East Room of the White House. President Trump sitting with a huge smile on his face, signing an executive order. All these young girls and women all crowding around him. They're all cheering. They're having the best time ever. They're thrilled that Donald Trump has signed this thing. President Trump is handing out the signature markers to all the little kids around him. At one point, he's like, where's Riley? Where's Riley? Riley Gaines. He wants to make sure Riley Gaines gets a marker. He wants to thank her. So many great people, Independent Women's Forum people in the room. So many governors that are there. Governor Youngkin is in attendance. You have the Speaker, Mike Johnson, was there. It was an unconditional victory. It was amazing in every sense. And it was hard fought by all the people who were in that room. It led to that moment yesterday, and it's total common sense that he would sign an executive order banning men from women's sports. Again, you just heard the numbers. Everybody's for it. It was really great. So I was showing the video to my family yesterday. My daughter loved it, my 10-year-old swimmer. She loved it. She's like, good, good, good. She was saying, she was all pumped. She was like fist pumping. She loved it. And, the left, what is wrong with them? Like they are so politically stupid. I just mean on the core points of like, how do you speak to the voter? How do you get them to like you? How do you get them to support you? How do you get them to vote for you? They just take the opposite position from anything Trump is for, as you just heard Scott Jennings say, 80-20. And the author of the Harry Potter books is this woman called J.K. Rowling. You're probably familiar with her. One of the most, certainly, if not the best paid author in all of history, close to it. She's up there. And she tweeted a picture of Trump. Now, she is not a conservative. This woman is a lefty. She's a Brit, but she's a lefty by all the ways we typically measure lefties, except on this issue. She is what the left considers a TERF, meaning a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. She's a feminist, but she only believes in those old-fashioned women, the regular women. She's not tolerant and inclusive enough to accept that men can also be women. She's opposed to that. So she's a lefty on all the other stuff. But on this, she's finding herself maddeningly lined up with conservatives. She can't even believe what has happened in her life, that she's now on the side of Donald Trump. So she took a screen grab of all of these young girls and women surrounding President Trump yesterday as he holds up the executive order with his signature on it. And everyone is having a fantastic time. And she wrote the following on X. She said this: congratulations to every single person on the left who's been campaigning to destroy women's and girls' rights. Without you, there would be no image like this. She's right. Congrats, everybody. All right, let's get to the phones. We've got Liz calling in from Washington, D.C., line 5. Hello, Liz. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Line 5. Stand by. Here's Liz. Hey, Liz.
Hi. I just wanted to call and share such an exciting day that my daughter and I got to be a part of the East Room, the White House, when Donald Trump was signing the executive order.
Really?
And it was so exciting to be there. It was so warm, so wonderful. She's one of the girls in a lot of those news clips right up in front. But one thing that no one is talking about is how when this was all over and my daughter and I are leaving the White House, we're walking outside. Already at that moment, Benjamin Netanyahu's motorcade is coming up. And all I could think about is this man at 3:45, whatever time it was, just saved women's sports, and moments later is now going to tackle peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, off to the next thing. He's got work to do. That's unbelievable.
Unstoppable.
So did the images of the event capture the emotion, or was it even better in the room?
Oh, of course, it was even better in the room. You're seeing the moment where he's signing, and he surprises us totally by bringing the girls up around him. That was unscripted.
I love that. Did your daughter get a marker? I saw it was hard. Those were few and far between. It was hard to get a marker.
Not. She did not.
That's okay. Anyway, she got to hang out with the President of the United States.
There. Oh, she was one of those right up there next to the desk.
I love that so much, Liz. That's what awesome news, man. What a treasured memory, I'm sure. Hey, thank you very much. That's Liz in D.C. calling in. She got to be there with the president yesterday. Her daughter got to hang out with the president. That's cool. I love it. Hey, coming up, Nick Minnock will be with us from WJLA. He's making reporting great again. This guy's a great guy. And we're going to talk about what's going on in Northern Virginia, these schools who are fighting back against Trump's common sense executive orders.